Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Local Leaders, the podcast. I am super honored today to have two guests on the show. One of them you see with me all the time on another podcast. And of course, as a matter of fact, he is famously known for saying he was Republican when Republican wasn't cool. And that is Assessor Jeff Taylor. So welcome to Local Leaders.
Thank you, Jim. And that is a true statement. I was the first parish-wide elected Republican in Livingston Parish. And so when I first started, it was nothing but Democrat in the whole, every office. Yeah. And this past time, we didn't have but two Democrats run for any office in Livingston Parish. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to
be the first.
Yeah.
The trendsetter. And, of course, to your right, we have I would say, the famous judge in the appeals court, and that is Judge Blair Edwards. So first of all, I want to welcome you to the show. I'm honored to have you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, actually, and honored to be sitting next to Jeff Taylor. That's for sure. That he was one of my first supporters in Livingston Parish about 18, 19 years ago.
Yeah, very good. Well, he knows talent when he sees it. That's what they say. Yep. So glad to have you on, and we're going to take the viewers and listeners through kind of a learn all about Judge Blair Edwards session here. And I want to start off by maybe if you could share with the listeners a little bit of your journey. I heard a story that you told on, I guess it was Facebook Reels or something at one point, where you discussed your journey a little bit and your path to the court system. Can you share a little bit of that?
Yes, and that sounded kind of strange, like my path to the court system.
Right. Because that can be taken two ways.
It surely could. And I can tell you that as a young girl in sixth grade, I wrote papers on being an attorney and interviewed attorney. And that was something that was, certainly I've always thought about. However, my life took somewhat of a detour. And choices and consequences are definitely a thing and certainly have become my motto. I was pregnant at 16. And then, you can kind of become self-absorbed and you can become a victim in your own mind, like, oh, goodness, what am I going to do? Well, my family never believed that I should not go to college. It wasn't kind of like, are you going to college? It's where you're going to college. And then I thought, okay, my dreams are over. Everything's gone. But I decided I didn't want to live that way. I did not want to be a statistic. And I guess at that time in my life, that's probably not how I processed it, but that's how I kept moving. Right. So back then, you didn't become pregnant and be single. You married. That was the proper thing to do. And so we got married. We were very young. He had a football scholarship to Nicholls State University, and I, being the young pregnant teenager, of course, was not going to let him go by himself because I was going to change his world, change my world, and this baby was going to change our world. Wow. And that's not quite how it happened. Yeah. But I went to Nicholls and certainly focused on my child and focused on my education. And I took 24 hours and had to get out as soon as I could because I had a family to take care of. And so that's what I did. I graduated from Nicholls and I had a bachelor's degree in accounting. And then I just started working, right? And working through. And of course, being very, very young, the marriage didn't work out. Sure. And he's a good grandfather to, my grandchildren now. But so I went and I was an accountant, and I went to work in downtown New Orleans. I worked for Entergy. First, I worked for Texaco. When Texaco merged with Chevron, the accounting department moved to Houston. By that time, goodness, that was years later, I had two children and certainly did not want to move to Houston without my support system here in Louisiana. So I went to work for Entergy. Did the compliance, regulatory, parent accounting for Entergy, and realized that accounting is a personality as much as it is a career. Right. And so I realized it was not my personality. So
You don't come off as the typical accountant.
No, I enjoyed it, but not your typical accountant.
Right.
No.
So what I did was I reached back into way long ago, and what was it that I really saw for myself? And I wanted to be an attorney, and that's what I wanted to do. So what I did was took the LSAT, applied to Loyola Law School, and not Texaco, but Entergy asked me that don't leave. Work part-time, we'll give you your benefits. And with the children, that was certainly something that interests me. So I continued working there part-time, and I went to night school at Loyola for the first year. The issue became that they did not take away the auditing, and the compliance regulatory, which happened 3 nights a month until about 12 o'clock at night. You would be downtown and we would, work through and get all of that done.
Wow.
Well, law school did not excuse me for those 3 days, and it became a little overwhelming, and I had to be in court. And so I transferred to the day program, moved to AMEET, which is where I was from, to have support. My mother was living in Texas at the time, so I didn't have her to help. But I had such a support system, just like in Livingston. There are people, they support you. They want you to do well. And so Daniel, my husband now, we were in the same kindergarten class. We grew up around the block from each other, and he had been my best friend. He would help me with the kids. I would leave, transferred into the day program. I would leave at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and he would be there and get him after school. And so it just was a natural, and going through what I went through, I wanted to have a best friend as a partner. And we ended up getting married, and I continued to go to law school, finished in 3 years because I took extra classes to make sure that I finished in 3 years because we had a family to support. And he was a prosecutor for 10 years and it was just it was hard. It was difficult. Today I look back on it, I don't even think about, was it hard? Was it not hard? I guess you just become on autopilot.
Right.
And that's what we did, and grew our family. And then there became a seat open, and I said, I think I'm gonna do that. It's with children and families, and I worked a lot with Habitat for Humanity after Hurricane Katrina, and just saw the children, the families in need. I saw ugly parts of what was going on that I probably could not imagine. I had a supportive family, but not one that said, hey, here's your silver spoon, right? We're going to make your life okay.
Sure.
It was more of, this is what you chose, and now you make the best of it. And so I cannot even say that, people say, oh, I made a mistake. I did not make a mistake. I have an incredible daughter who's 41 years old, who's a nurse, who is the absolute best mother in the world to 2 grandbabies that I have. My son, my daughter, our other Daniel's 2 children. We have had to navigate a whole lot, but in the end, the rewards were unbelievable to us. But running for office, Daniel had been the sheriff, and certainly his family, they were not in favor of me running for judge. However, I felt it as a calling and as a passion, and I just said, I'm sorry, I'm not running for family names or politics. This is something that is in my core belief, and so I did it. And I've been representing Livingston and the surrounding parishes for almost 18 years. They have blessed me by saying, great job, because I have run unopposed, all but the first. Ran unopposed.
And that's huge.
That's huge.
And it tells you what kind of job you're doing.
Right. And I ran unopposed for the First Circuit, which included the St. Tammany, Washington Parish areas, and plus, East Feliciana, West Feliciana, and then, of course, my core area, which is Tangi, Livingston, and St. Helena. So I've been on the Court of Appeals. My opinions speak for themselves, my core beliefs. I'm certainly could not have gotten through all of this without being a Christian and having a church home.
Amen.
That was something that was very important to me, important to for me to rear my children in. And so I'm just absolutely so blessed, for sure.
Yeah, and one thing about your story that really stuck out to me is being a judge. It has a lot to do with decision making, and if you look at your life, you could have zigged when you zagged, so to speak. You made the right decisions at the right times to put you on a path where you're at now, and you are obviously very successful. One thing I can tell you is that you are looked at as a mentor to many. I have never had the pleasure of meeting you till today, but I felt like I knew you. As a matter of fact, Judge Jenny Fore, who's been on this show several times, spoke so highly of you that I wanted to meet you. And so I'm excited to have you on today. But mentorship speaks volumes, and your decision making along the way seems like it was the right decisions to make. A lot of people out there listening to this right now, they will see what you did, and it may give someone your life's not over because you're pregnant at 16 years old. A lot of people think that.
A lot of people do
of
think,
course.
Absolutely. And I've used my story as my platform. Of course, if you don't use your story, somebody else will, right? But I use it as my platform, not because I'm proud that I became pregnant at 16, because certainly it was a huge challenge, and a huge challenge in my family. And I'm sure it was embarrassing to my family members. But the one thing that I thought, especially after going through what I went through, after being, working and running for judge and all of these things, the one thing I said is, you know what? And I tell the children, or would tell the children in my courtroom, people don't get to write the rest of your story unless you let them.
That's right.
And, there are all kinds of, how many chapters you may have. The bottom line is you're in control of it. Now, what the decisions you make decide if you're going to have a fairy tale ending, right? Or if there's going to be a tragedy. And I can tell you that I looked at my family and I thought to myself, you know what? I want my children to live this life. And I'm not talking about a life of money and fame and fortune. It had nothing to do with that. It was a life full of love, and a life making good decisions and being responsible and being successful. And success comes in all kinds of different packages. But I think at the end of the day, when you can sit down with your family and you can pray together and you can have a meal together and they're making good choices and they're good to their children, I think that to me is success. But if I can be a mentor and guide other people that have come in my life, and show them and tell them your life's not over at the deepest, darkest points of their life, that we're going to be here. We're going to protect you. We're going to hold your hand. We're going to do all of those things. And not even just to the people that come in because their kids have delinquent charges or are abused and neglected children, but also the people that work with me. I had a little girl. She's my daughter's, younger than my oldest daughter, but and she was going through a horrible time of her life, and she was working for the clerk's office, and she was my minute clerk. And I looked at her and I said, "Why are you here? Why are you not in law school?" And she said, "I can't. I'm a single mother with a child." And I said, "Well, then you cannot not do it. Like, you owe yourself and owe your children, right, to do the best you can be. You can take out loans. We will get you in school. We will do these sorts of things." And, it's to be there for people that are, that can't stand up for themselves at that particular time. And I've just had the most incredible journey. I've had just working with drug courts, because you're not just working with that child, you're working with these families. And everybody, I believe, has been touched by addiction. Or something to that nature. And so it's amazing when you see the transformation and you see kids that are getting their diplomas or going to college when they were truant or not showing up for school 80 days a year, you know. But it's been an amazing journey. I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to have these opportunities. And I know you say everybody has them. Everybody doesn't realize that they can take hold of these opportunities. And I just want people to realize that if they can see that I can do it, then anybody can do it.
100%. And, you know, you mentioned truancy, and that's something I've seen a lot of stats on truancy, and it's amazing the difference just keeping kids in school will do for a community in relation to juvenile crime.
Yes, so
that's
right. We've had a truancy, court, and I feel very strongly in that. And I can remember there was a time where, well, there was more than one time, but this particular time, putting this mother in jail after telling her, like, over months, you cannot sabotage your child's future. And she would get, doctor's excuses from this doctor. So I subpoenaed the doctor, and the doctor came in with an attorney, fearful. And I said, I'm going to report you to the medical review panel. Like, you cannot keep writing, these excuses for these kids not to be in school. This child has missed over 80 days. Like, Mom, either she's going to go or you're going to go to jail. You don't have the right to sabotage your child's future. And that's what I did. And I got calls, from elected officials. And I told them, I said, the principal showed up and his time off. It was like during the Easter holidays or Thanksgiving holidays, I think. And they called me 7:30 in the morning. We're getting all kinds of phone calls. And I said, you know what? I'm the one that made this decision. And I have big shoulders. Like, I've got to do this for this child. And I told him, I said, just tell him that crazy blonde lady's not listening, right? I mean, I did this and put her in jail, and I'm going to stick by this because I want her to understand. And certainly she didn't have it wasn't bad, but her daughter did not want to go to school, right? And she seemingly was so distraught. And finally, this little girl, smart girl, her life opened up, and her mother did too. And it certainly wasn't in an effort to harm the mother or whatever, but it was to open her eyes to realize how important it is. Because if kids can't read by the third grade, the propensity for them to drop out changes significantly.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, very important. Jeff Taylor.
Yes, sir.
You were great friends with this lady right here.
I am.
And I want you to talk a little bit about Judge Edwards and what you find is appealing about her seeking a Louisiana Supreme Court judgeship.
Well, first off, she said something a few minutes ago that I think people need to pay attention. She said, I will not allow you to sabotage your child's future.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Huge.
When you just stop and you think about that, it took somebody with a lot of nerve to make that stand. Because like she said, getting calls everywhere. People are pulling you. The thing that I found out about Judge Blair is this simple thing, that she follows the law. She does not waver to any calls here and there. She follows the law. What does the law say? Whether that be her family, whether that be her friends. Look, I've called her on things before because I get calls on a lot of stuff. We was talking about this a little bit earlier, all the things I get calls on. I get one side of it, and I'll call her and say, this is what I know. This is what I've heard. Now, you're going to have to find out what the full story is, but this is what I know. The thing that I do know is that she goes in there and she does her homework. But something I want people to understand real quickly is they want to keep on saying something about her being on the Juvenile Court. Court of Appeals, not juvenile.
No.
She ran unopposed for that. So people obviously thought that she had everything that was needed to go on the Court of Appeals. It's like I've told you a few times. It's amazing to me, for 3 years and about 6 months, people think I'm the greatest thing in the world, except for the 2 months where the tax bills go out.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, because somebody wants to run for an office, they could have went to church with me Sunday, went to lunch with me Sunday, but all of a sudden, because somebody else wants to run, I become a bad person.
Yeah.
This woman is a great, great example of what life should be. She didn't let circumstances sabotage her child's life. She didn't let circumstances sabotage her life. But all of a sudden, because now somebody else wants to run, which, by the way, it's stuck in my craw. You and I have talked about this before.
Sure.
When is it our turn? When is it the people of the 21st or Livingston Parish stand up and say, you know what? I know every time we turn around, somebody is coming to us to support somebody else. But when it's our turn, they never come to support ours.
Right.
So Livingston, I grew up in a little place called Coyell. Some of you have heard of it. Some of you have not. Some of the greatest people you are ever going to meet in your life. And people always say, well, you're just from Coyell. Just from Coyell. Let me tell you something. I'm from Coyell. And I'm extremely proud. I'm from Livingston Parish. And it is time that we stand up and say, you know what? We deserve that seat just as much as you do. We deserve that judge just as much as you do. We deserve the 21st Judicial District. We deserve that Supreme Court. And we're going to come take it because we want to stand up for our people. I have witnessed this lady for 20 years. A little side note here, our daughters went to college together at Rhodes College.
Okay.
Yeah. So they knew each other then. So I would run into Blair when she wasn't judge.
Right.
Okay. She was mom.
Yeah.
I got to witness that. I got to see her and her husband at every function that we went to. So you get to know somebody after a while, and you know that it's not just a political thing. It is a core thing. And when she tells you for her core that she has pulled herself up, she pulled herself up.
Yeah.
And I'm in great admiration for her. I was with her when she ran way back when we were both a little bit younger, and I'm with her now. And I'm telling you that the people of Livingston Parish are fortunate to have somebody like Blair Edwards as their judge. The people of the appeals district is very fortunate to have her because she is going to follow the law. It's not a deal to where she's going to flip a coin.
Yeah.
It's not a deal where she's on the bench and she lets people go and then they go out and they commit crimes. I know of what I speak here because I've watched her.
Yeah.
I think she's a great lady. I think it's time that the people of Livingston Parish stand up and say, it's our turn. It's our turn. When, if not now, when? When do we start saying, this is us, whether it be for senator, congressman, whatever? Why not us? Is it because we are in a situation to where we don't believe we deserve it? I do.
Yeah.
I believe that Livingston Parish deserves everything that we can possibly get. And we are out there. And, Judge, I'm going to tell you now, I've told you this on many occasions, but I support you 100%. I endorse you. I will be out there. If you need somebody helping you put up signs, I will be out there putting up signs. If you need somebody shaking hands with you, I will be there putting up signs and shaking hands with you. I'm not as young as I used to be. Those signs hurt me a little bit more than they used to. But I want people to know that this lady has my full support because I know what she does. I don't always give my full support to people.
Sure. People
ask me all the time, would you come out, would you come out, would you come out? No. This lady right here deserves our support. She deserves Livingston support. She deserves the 21st Judicial District support. She deserves the whole appeals court because she's been in there and they've seen her work. They don't have to guess at her work. It's not like she's running for the first time and we say, well, I wonder what she's going to do. I know what she's going to do. She's going to follow that law. And if that law, if I go in there and ask her to do something that's not with the law, she's going to tell Jeff Taylor no.
Right.
It's not for who endorses her. It's what the law says. And you have my full support.
I appreciate that so much. I'm honored for sure.
Well, and I'll first of all, I agree with you 100%, of course. But I will also say that fair and impartial is an important thing, obviously, for a judge in any aspect of the court. Your seat that you are running for was vacated by Judge Will Crane, who moved to the federal court system.
Yes.
How much thought did it take for you to make that decision?
You know, it was a lot, and I'll tell you why. Being on the First Circuit is very different than the district court because it's not a constant thing. right? I mean, there's a lot of work to be done there. It's one of the busiest court of appeals. Sure. But the work is different in that I have my reading materials, I have my briefs, I have all of that, and I can, read that at home. It's not like you have to be somewhere all of the time. You have your oral argument days, you have your writ conference days, you have your administrative conference days. But for the most part, if I want to pick up and go somewhere, I have the things I need to do my job. And so with my husband retiring from the sheriff's office for 20 years, we had kind of gotten not even settled into this is going to be good. We're just going to, I'm going to be there for 8 years and I'm going to have all my reading. And reading is a lot different than having to be somewhere, right on the clock. And so, being relaxed and peace of mind and all of these things kind of started settling in. And then when I heard that, oh goodness, now we have a vacated Supreme Court seat. Well, the first thing I did was check with my, actually there are 3 other females on the Court of Appeals in our Court of Appeals district. And to check with them to say, is anybody running for this? I mean, is anybody going to take this on? And I heard a lot of, district court judges, and not that these people aren't smart, intelligent, or that kind of thing. But however, being on the Court of Appeals on an appellate review court is very different. You're not the big guy in the courtroom. You don't make all the decisions. You don't get to, decide everything. The bottom line is you have other people that you have to work with.
Right.
It's a very different environment. And so at that point, I said, I just feel this calling. I prayed about it. I thought, it's going to be a little unrest with my grandchildren and my family. But then I just thought, some things aren't about me. And some things are about the process and my core values and what I believe that someone needs to do. And so at that point, I said to my husband, I think this. And he said, are you really going to do this? Are you really going to do this? And I said, I am. Yeah. Like, I'm dedicated. I had a bunch of people calling me, as I'm sure people were calling everybody else, trying to line up their person, right?
Sure.
Well, I can tell you that I didn't do it for someone that called me. I did it after prayer and consideration and realizing that we need somebody that has appellate review experience. And not only do we need somebody with appellate review experience, but they have the programmatic stuff. We take care of all the budgetary for the budget for the entire judiciary. Specialty courts are something that I believe in. And where do we place our money? What programs do we place our money? Where's the most bang for your buck, so to speak? And also transparency with the judiciary, I think, is key. You hear about judges, going rogue, or political activists are making all these decisions and that are not appropriate. Or judges doing things that, we should be held to a higher standard. We're the ones that are issuing sentences. We're the ones that are saying, these consequences need to be in place. But then we don't get to be absolved for making, and I'm not saying bad decisions. Sometimes you're going to make decisions that aren't popular.
Sure.
But I'm talking about things that are unethical, things that are illegal. And I think that the judiciary has to be quick, swift, and transparent with those things. And that's something that I'm certainly really wanting to get into the weeds of.
Yeah.
Jim, if you've been reading the paper a little bit, you see where the governor is talking about how we need to bring some of these rogue judges into, because what happens a lot of times is when a judge gets in there, they make these decisions. And like Blair said, there's a lot of times that you just make a decision that's not popular.
Sure.
One of those things. But there's sometimes that you make a real error. And so that's what the governor is talking about when he starts talking about that very thing of we need to bring these judges into not just compliance, I don't know the word, but you got to bring them into – you can't let people go in a court system just because you may know some of their family. You can't let people go just because you think that this is not the way. What does the law say? If the law says they should be locked up, we should lock them up, period. And know that this one's going to follow the law. I know there's questions about what the opponent has done up in the district that he's at, and some people have been let go, as far as I know. And so those are things that we got to pay attention to. But another thing is on the Supreme Court, the female perspective is very important. We're male-dominated. Look, I've got a strong mother, a strong wife, and a strong daughter. I believe that women can do everything in this world.
100%.
And I support them 100%. If not now, when?
Yeah.
We've got a chance to put a female on that Supreme Court, and I think it's time.
Well, and I want to quote you something that you said that kind of spoke to me, and I think it speaks to what you would do on the Louisiana Supreme Court. And your quote was, "My parents and grandparents raised me to be a strong conservative, even while surrounded by folks with opposing views, even family. I've never lost my bearings. Some call it stubborn. I call it backbone. I stand my ground, aim straight, and keep a sense of humor about it. If you want a Supreme Court judge who has convictions and won't budge, heck, that's been the story of my life." I like that.
Absolutely. That has been the story of my life. And I think you can look at who I'm married to. You can look at his family. I think it's only fair that you look at me.
Yeah.
You know, that you look at me. And when I'm standing up in a room full of people that don't share my views and I still stand up, I think that's a lot better than surrounding yourself with like-minded people, because you don't have to stand up for anything. You don't have to fight for anything.
Yeah, you don't have to make an argument.
No, you don't have to make an argument.
Right.
But I stand up regardless if it's my family, if it's my in-laws, if it's people in general. I want them to know what I stand for, who I am, and I don't falter with that.
You stand on your own merits.
Stand on my own merits. I stand on the fact that, yes, I was 16 and pregnant. And let me tell you how hard it was. And let me tell you why you shouldn't do that. And however, if you make one mistake, you don't have to make another one, right?
Right.
It's not what you do, it's what you do after. And I think that's very important. And that certainly has been my guiding light, for sure.
Yeah, and you have a lot of support out there. Obviously, Assessor Jeff Taylor endorses you, but also the RPAC, the Livingston RPAC.
Yes.
You picked up an endorsement from the St. Tammany Sheriff, Randy Smith, Newell Norman.
So, yes, that is someone I highly respect. And he is known, I believe, for doing the right thing, even when it's not popular. He's a very... he's out there. He's on the radio. He does these things. And he didn't endorse me. People say, oh, well, he's from Jefferson Parish. Well, I haven't just dealt with sheriffs because of my husband. I've dealt with them on many other things, seminars, speaking to the Louisiana Sheriff's Association, going into Angola, learning about the whole criminal, what's going on, the criminal minds. I've become a trauma practitioner, understand litigants in the courtroom, regardless if it's criminal or families or even personal injury litigant. I mean, to understand where's all this coming from. And I've worked a lot with Sheriff Norman, and I have a great amount of respect for him. And I do know he doesn't give out endorsements. Rarely does he give out endorsements, but he knows my work ethic. He knows what I've put into the system. And when I say the system, I mean the entire system. And that was, I was very humbled by his endorsement, for sure. Yeah,
it is. It's a big deal. And you mentioned, obviously, you're married to a former sheriff, but you are backed to pretty good by the entire law enforcement community as a whole.
Yes, people that have worked with me, and the sheriffs and the deputies, but the police officers and the deputies are that's where it is, right? That's who's out there, and they can tell you that, look, at night when they needed me, they called my cell phone. I would get up, go in the bathroom so that I didn't wake up people in the house, and I would just talk them through things. And I was very accessible to them and helpful to them. And so I'm very proud of working with law enforcement and so respectful of the job that they do.
Very good. Very good. Jeff Taylor, when is this election? We're going to ask you.
The election is in May. It's a Republican if you remember now, we have the closed primaries. And so the way it will be is because there's only two that will be decided in May.
Right.
And I don't even know if they have a Democrat on the other side that's going to be running. So this race can be decided it will be decided in May because no one else qualified. So early voting, though, starts 2 or 3 weeks before that date.
Okay.
So you need to remember, if you can't make it out for the election day, which the election day is what day?
May 16th.
May 16th. If you can't make it there, look at the early voting.
May 2nd through the 9th.
2nd through the 9th, you can do the early voting.
Yeah, if you get an opportunity, I always encourage.
There is no reason that people, because they have it here in Livingston Parish, they got it at the courthouse, and they also have it over here in Dillon Springs at the library. There's no reason that we shouldn't have a big turnout for somebody that's our own. Yeah. We should be there. So, it's in May, and it's closed primary. Now, I believe that it's Republicans and no party can vote in. So it's not necessarily a real closed primary.
Right.
But, we're getting out there and making sure that people come out there and vote. And if you see us out there putting up signs and you see Blair and her husband and her family putting them out, give her a little honk on the horn. Give her some encouragement, because it's tough when you get out there, because what you're doing when you put your name on that dotted line, you're asking people to decide whether they like you or not.
Right.
That's what you're doing. Do they like you enough to vote for you? It's very true. And so you're putting yourself out there, and it's easy to take shots at politicians and judges and things like that. It's easy, and it's part of the game, and we all just roll with it and everything. But it's awfully nice when you see people out there that say, you know what? I know you. I know your character. I'm going to support you.
Yeah.
It's awfully nice because you got enough of the other side.
That's right. That's right. Any final thoughts, Judge?
Yes, please vote May 16th and preferably May 2nd through the 9th. Yeah. Please vote. I would love your vote and support, and I'd be honored to serve Livingston Parish in this capacity.
Absolutely. And again, just honored that you came on. Glad to finally meet you in person. Really do appreciate it. Assessor Jeff Taylor, thank you as always for coming on. We love to sit down and just talk together. So we really do appreciate it. Again, we're going to put Judge Blair Edwards' website in the description of this podcast so you can click, learn whatever more information that you need on the good judge. And until next time, I'm Jim Chapman with Local Leaders, the podcast, reminding you love your community, support local business and local judges, and keep leading. Thank you very much.